guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Switch and Click, and today we'll be talking about what lube do you use to lubricate your mechanical keyboard switches. Well, first of all, let's talk about why you should lube your switches. So lubing the housing, the stem, and the springs inside your switches will decrease surface friction, especially when they glide against each other, causing that movement to be much smoother and give your linear switches and your tactile switches a more buttery feel when you press on them. It works on all types of switches, but you have to be careful what lube you're using for your specific ones. Always make sure you do a trial run on a non-vital switch before you actually lube every single one of your keys, just in case you might not like the way that it feels. So for some switches, it might even decrease the sound of the switches, because due to the surface friction being decreased and the housing and the stem and the springs moving better, there'll be less noise and rattle within the switches. And then as to how to lube your switches, we posted links into a lot of different guides to different great resources in the blog post down below that we'll be listing in the show notes. So let's talk about lubricants. Now, we've looked at lubricants for stabilizers before. So there's two kinds of lubricants. There's oils and there's grease. And the main difference is their application. With greases, you sort of have to use a paintbrush to get them onto the surfaces of your housing stems and springs and stabilizers. But with oils, you have more options. You can spray, you can brush, and then you can also mass bag lube all your springs in a bag. Add some lube in there, shake it around, and then you're done. You lubed up your springs. You didn't have to brush every single one of them like you would have to with grease. And then let's talk about a really important term called viscosity. So we hear that a lot. So what does it even mean? A higher viscosity means that the lubricant itself is much thicker. So when you're comparing honey to water, honey has a higher viscosity. So in terms of viscosity, it's graded by numbers. So the lower the number, the less viscous it is. The community members recommend using viscosity of 3203 or 203 for tactile switches, 205 or 206 for linear switches. And then a member from the community at Krytox says that you can use 3204, 204, or 104 for either linear or tactile switches. But definitely do research beforehand about what other people within the subreddit think, within Krytox, within Geek Hack. Check out what lubes they're using for their specific switches, or like what mixtures of lubricants. And then always do a trial run before you lubricate every single one of your switches. So stabilizer lubes such as dielectric grease, silicone grease, lithium grease, we don't want to use those for our switches. Those are too thick and they'll cause it to just not move right. So moving on to switch lubes, we have the Keg Labs Deoxic. This isn't a specific lube that people use for switches within the community, but it is an option. It's currently priced at $17 on Amazon, which is pretty cheap compared to the lubes that we'll be talking about later on that most people recommend within the keyboard community. So this is a more generalized lube, and it is safe with plastic, ABS, and PBT. The downside is that once you lube your switches, it'll increase the chance of dirt and dust being built up upon those surfaces, so you might have to clean them more often. So this specific one is a spray lube. It's really fast to lube all your switches, but it's not precise, and it might be difficult to get in the housing and the springs themselves unless you take all your switches apart and then spray them. And next we have the Fader lube. This is also created by Keg Labs. This is a needlepoint application, and it costs right now $25 on Amazon. Unfortunately, one member of the community used this lube for their blue switches and it lost the click. So this lube's better for linear switches. So make sure you do trial and error, or else your precious blues are gonna lose their click, and you don't want that. Next we have Super Lube, which is a super common household product that you'll probably find in most stores such as AutoZone or Home Depot. And this is a cheaper option compared to Krytox. Someone in the community emailed Super Lube asking if they could mix two different kinds, and it'll create a combination that's very similar to Krytox, except it's much cheaper. So the two lubes that you mix are the Super Lube oil with syncolin or PTFE and the Super Lube multi-purpose grease. And what proportions you do that with will probably vary depending on your preferences. So yep, test and see. So next we have Krytox. This was made for the automotive industry, and Krytox is very, very popular within the mechanical keyboard community. You're probably hear 205G0 all the time, and this is a Krytox lubricant. So one downside to this is that Krytox lubes were meant to be used within a closed system with extreme temperatures such as cars. But when we look at keyboard switches, they're not a closed system. They're an open system that can be exposed to dust and dirt and room temperature. So that means that we might have to clean our switches more often than we would like. So the viscosity ratings of Krytox lubes are based on the numbers. The lower the number, the lower the viscosity. And lower viscosity is much better for our switches. And then we have it'll be like 100 series, and those are oils, and our 200 series, those are greases. And then we'll look at grade. So grade 0 is the smoothest consistency, and that one's probably the most preferable for switches. Probably won't go anywhere near 1 or 2 of those grades at all. So if we look at a Krytox lubricant 205G0, this means that it's a grease and it has a smooth consistency similar to that of peanut butter. Next we have Tribosys lubricants. These are made by Stevenson, and these are comparable to the Krytox lubricants. They're a little bit cheaper. One downside to them is that it's almost impossible to clean and wash these off if you have a spill of some sort. So definitely be careful. It's difficult to wash it off with soap, water, or really any solvent. These are a general purpose lube, and they're low thickness switch lubes. So the lube that's good for Tribosys to use on your switches will be the 3204 lubricants. After that we have the GHV4 lubricants that you'll probably only hear within the mechanical keyboard community. These are custom mixes of Krytox lubricants. We have the thick and the thin. The thick one is a mixture of thick Krytox oils and a grade 3 Krytox grease. They're good for any switches, rings, and stabilizers, so it's an all-purpose lubricant. And then we have the thin one, which is made out of thin Krytox oil and also grade 3 Krytox grease. And this one is good for linear switches, springs, not stabilizers though. And it's probably good for tactile ones as well. One thing I would like to note is do not use WD-40 on your switches. WD-40 is not meant to be a lubricant. It's not a lubricant. WD stands for water displacing. It's used as a solvent and a rust dissolver, so it's probably going to ruin your plastic. Alright, so where can we find these lubricants? Well, I've accumulated a list of different places that you can buy specifically lubricants that people within the keyboard community prefer to use for their switches in the blog post down below, but we'll do a quick rundown of the companies. First we have Zeal PC. They're offering Tribosys 3204 for 5 millimeters for $35. So it's a little bit pricey, but you are getting 5 milliliters, which is more than what other companies will get you. And then they sell Krytox 205 grade 0 at 5 grams for $25. And they also sell GHV4 thick or thin at $15 for 2 milliliters. Next we have Novelkeys. They sell a variety of lubricants. They sell Krytox 203, 204, 205, 206, all grade 00 for $12 for 2 milliliters each. And they also sell Crystal Lube for $8 for 2 milliliters as well. And they have 101, 102, and 129, all grade 2. The Crystal Lube 129G2 is very similar to the Krytox 205G0. And the one benefit of these is they come in beautiful glass containers that you can put right next to the face moisturizer that's sitting on your bathroom sink. Next we have Keys.mi. They sell GHV4, a variety of Krytox lubricants in grade 0, 0, 0, 1, and 2. So a lot more options there. We also have Switch Top, and they sell a special mix a special blend of Krytox created by geek hackers, and that costs $15. And they also sell Tribosys lubes as well. One Up keyboard sells Tribosys and Krytox lubes, and all the compatibilities of the lubricants, what you can use on linears, what you can use on tactiles, are all listed down below in that blog post as well. And then we have a Canadian seller, Apex Keyboards, and they sell Tribosys, Krytox, and a switch spring oil specifically, and they sell all that in a bundle for about $19. So that's it for this video. I hope that really helped you figure out what lubes you're going to use for your switches, provide information on what lubes are out there and where you can get them. Question of the day is, have you lubed your keyboard before? What switches and what lube did you use, and how was the experience before and after? As always, thank you so much for watching. Press like if you liked it, subscribe if you wanna, if not, that's okay. Happy typing. Bye!